I'd like to call the March 6, 2023 meeting of the City Council for the City of Lake City to order. If everybody would stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, remain standing for the invocation.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to gather and conduct the business of our community. We ask for your guidance, that what we do is pleasing to your eyes and for the benefit of our community. We ask for you to look after our citizens, our first responders, and our troops. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Ms. Sykes, we call the roll, please.
Mr. Jernigan?
Here.
Mr. Hill?
Here.
Ms. Young?
Here.
Mr. Sampson?
Here.
Mayor Witt?
Here.
Mr. Dial?
Here.
Mr. Kennon?
Here.
Chief Butler?
Ladies and gentlemen, the Lake City Council has opened its public meeting since 1968. The city code has prohibited any person from making personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks or becoming boisterous while addressing the city council. Yelling or making audible comments from the audience constitutes boisterous conduct. Such conduct will not be tolerated. There's only one approved manner of addressing the city council, that is to be recognized and speak from the podium. As a reminder, persons are not to openly carry a handgun or carry a concealed weapon or firearm while the governing body is meeting. Okay, we have no proclamations under minutes. We have February the 21st workshop and February 21st regular session. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the minutes and publish. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next is approval of the agenda. We have somebody that wants to speak on, ordinance 2242. We have just a couple extra minutes, so we'll do that under that ordinance. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So move.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the agenda is published. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, persons wishing to address council, Mr. Warren.
Mr. Mayor, thank you for being so gracious to let me speak to a few items. Sylvester Warren, hopefully you'll give me a few more minutes because I'm trying to address 5 items within 3 minutes. I got a tri-county meeting to be at. I want to start out with item 3 on the agenda, which is seeking direction on the CDBG grant as it relates to Richardson. I think that that dog won't hunt. I think it would be more of an issue for Richardson Community Center. You may not be familiar with it, and some other guys may be not familiar with it, but it floods. And so you start overlaying that road, you're gonna have more of a slant and a slope to push more water back into Richardson. The grant doesn't actually do anything to enhance the Richardson Community Center in of itself, other than put some touchless sinks and some touchless restrooms in there, which commits you to 5 years of a community center, which if you look at the 1984 lawsuit that was filed, it was never designed to be a community center, but it was designed to be a recreation center, in which I've got my lawyers looking at it as to whether or not the city can even deed it over to the county. So we may have some litigation going on that. Also, on number 4, the capital layout project by city manager D. Johnson, I hope that we get Camp Street included in there, and we get that portion of Lollipop in which the Irma Street has been overlaid so much that it's causing water to go on private property, and I think that falls on the city. And I think that's in Mr. Jernigan district. I've addressed it before. This was way before Mr. Jernigan became councilman. But this has been an ongoing issue. It's been in the newspaper before, and I've sent this out to administration. As it relates to item number 13, we're talking about the discussion and the possibility of terminating the interlocal agreement with the county as the building inspector. I think that's the fastest and the quickest thing that we can do. I've caught hell trying to get a permit running back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, as I'm trying to put a commercial building on the corner of Marion Street and Coach Anderson for my aunt and uncle, LG Transit. And you know, I don't think none of you have ever been in the building business. Now, there may be one person up in the real estate that faked that they've been in the building business, but no one has been, I built both residential and commercial. And to go through the process you gotta go through and jump through those hoops, we gotta kill that, Mayor. That is not city friendly for city developers. Cause there's different sets of ordinance, there's different sets of codes for the city versus the county. And then when you get over there, they tell you that, well, you gotta get this from the city. Then you gotta run back to the city, then you gotta run back to the county. You're losing money, you're losing time, and it's very, 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 very frustrating. And that needs to be worked out. That agreement needs to be terminated. Why we ever did, I have the slightest idea. I got two options. I think we can go with North Florida, and at the same time, automatically open that position up for somebody to apply for it. As far as number 14, we have a workshop about City Hall. I get it. Vacant lots, I get it. Crime prevention, I mean, I don't know why that's on the agenda. I don't think that mall security is what I call Lake City Police Department can solve crime if it had GPS on it. Now, as far as Flock, I thought Flock was already a done deal according to the chief. He done came up here several times telling us that Flock was a done deal. What is it to discuss on it other than cutting Flock a check if that's the truth, if he didn't lie to us? Also, Mel, before I take my seat and get out of here briefly, Andy Maddox Park, Mayor, you remember that?
Yeah.
Remember y'all asking me to go out and get the bids for it? And say, hey, Sylvester, if you go out and you do the legwork, you know, you be the do boy, you go out there and get that stuff, then you bring it back to us and we'll vote on it, and then we'll know how much it costs. Now, I'm gonna remind you, Mayor, it was the same time that Tina Roberts had her thing going on and y'all was funding, and you say, I'll tell you what, you bring what you all want and you bring what you all want. And I brought that, Mayor. And for some reason, the $69,000 bid that I went and got Walt Graham to do for the lights, piggybacked off the same people that Richardson Community Center had. It was a $68,000 bid, but for some reason, Donna Duncan got me on a line item for $50,000 when y'all voted on $69,000. The $50,000 that y'all voted on was to begin the process work on North Downtown. Andy Maddox had an agreement from the city to spend the money.
Well, we'll get the minutes from that and straighten it out.
I want to know before leaving this podium is the community, because here's the problem. Teens need more to do. It's not fair that Young's Park is lit up and got a court that's not a trip hazard, and we've been waiting for over a year to get the money from you guys and sign all these agreements and jump through all these hoops. And it's just not fair, Mel.
Well, we'll get it right.
Say that again, Mel?
We'll get it right.
So I got your word, I'm gonna get it right.
I'm gonna find out what we agreed to and be supporting that. Whatever we agreed to and.
Mel, I'm taking at your word, Mel, and I'm on 3 or 4 today. But Mel, we come back and, I know what the minutes say. I got a member like an elephant. We're gonna be on 10 in here.
Okay.
All right.
Joshua Gardner.
Thank you guys very much. Sorry, my voice is a little bit hoarse here. Just a couple of things in terms of I'll just kind of skip ahead for that building permit, as Mr. Warren mentioned. I think that's an absolute benefit, to speak ahead of time towards it, that, the city needs to have their own things so people don't have to continuously go back and forth depending on where this property is, and is it city or is it county? Because there's still, as you guys have had meetings and even the county has had meetings, there's alcoves and Arby's belongs to the county, but everything around it belongs to the city, kind of strange things. So a building permit specifically for the city versus outsourcing to the county would be a fantastic idea. In terms of the City Hall building, I know that was something spoken about several meetings ago, that the inspector was supposed to be coming back out to give that information. I'm hoping that this workshop or this meeting that we're going to have scheduled for the city hall is going to provide that data, because we had already talked that they were going to come out and have it researched. So I'm hoping that we're not going to come to this meeting and then figure out what we're going to do. We're going to actually come to this meeting with all the information. The vacant lots, I have in the past, I've actually spoken to Mr. Dial about it. You know, some certain things that I would love to be able to do for the city when it comes to vacant lots, especially in the downtown area. One of my main goals is to create a nonprofit specifically for downtown, to kind of be a voice of downtown. We had a lovely Chamber of Commerce who was downtown. Unfortunately, they're not anymore. And I think that there's a lot of business and there's a lot of growth. And as I've said before, you know, other places around us have half the population as Lake City and Columbia County, and we're sitting here dead last when it comes to bringing people downtown. I mean, thank God we have Hal Patter. I'm so appreciative of what new stuff is going to be coming with the theater from the last meeting. And lastly, the other thing that I want to speak about, obviously everyone's probably noticed the fencing around I-75 by now. It's been several weeks. I don't know if anyone else has noticed that the homeless situation is becoming even more rough now. You know, there's no place for them to go. And it's troublesome. I'm also noticing that the tree lines have been being cut back quite a bit around the whole neighborhood of my like McFarland. I'm not sure quite what the reason is for it, but I do know that you know, like around the Home Depot area and Walmart and whatnot, there was significant homeless presence back there, and I'm wondering if those tree lines being cut has something to do with trying to clear that up. I don't know. But just kind of odd that those timings kind of coincided. Yeah, other than that, thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Aaron Trippensey.
Yes, my name is Aaron Trippensey. I live at 827 Southwest Laurel Lane. I'm coming back to the council, same as what I talked about last time, is the condition on Laurel Lane. I need to make a few statements. One is the city council never voted to remove the dead end on Laurel Lane. The commercial use would never have been expected on Laurel Lane because the lane is not set for that kind of traffic. And the city code enforcement has turned a blind eye to let commercial traffic enter onto Laurel Lane. And they let Todd Sampson remove a fence that was its sole purpose to not allow commercial use of Laurel Lane. I requested my council representative, Mr. Jernigan, address this issue.
Mayor, may I speak on that?
Yes.
A couple of things. So you're telling me that Mr. Sampson has removed the fence without the council permission to do so, or the planning and zoning, am I correct?
Yes.
The next thing is that I think we spoke about that, and Mr. Sampson advised me that he was working on putting another fence back there to stop that traffic from coming in. I think you said it was only like eight houses back there, and I think Mr. Sampson owned one of those houses. If you would, give me a chance to address it with the city manager, Mr. Dow, and I will take actions ASAP, if you don't mind.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jernigan.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay.
Starting route to Southwest
Liz Fryer.
and South Area Avenue. Then turn right onto
Good evening, and thank you all for your time. I'm only here for one thing, the last meeting that we had with the issue at hand with the proposed development of the Hunter's property. At that time,
just a little bit, I don't.
oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
At that time, they were saying, and the city employees were bringing up the fact that a lot of studies still needed to go into effect prior to passing it. And that was city, I believe his name is Steve Brown, who stated at that time that the appropriate thing would be to take into account what was going on and then do the studies from the city itself before they would pass it. Instead, what happened, even though we had about 80 people here from Cannon Creek Air Park and other neighboring areas, they went ahead and passed it, not taking into account what was discussed by their own employees, which to me was a little concerning. Because if my employees who specialize in that particular area tell me and suggest to me to go ahead and table something until further studies could be accomplished and revised, I would take their word to go ahead and hold it until that time, but that did not take place. So therefore, I have, as I went ahead and presented to Ms. Sykes, a petition for it to be revised. I understand that it was fast, but I wanted to go into documentation that we are still against it until further studies are in fact concluded and completed due to the fact of issues with Baskin Norris not being able at this time or in the near future until the studies actually take place to be able to be expanded. Right now, as you all know, it's pretty bad there, even without the additional Tennis Forever's event that's happening tomorrow. And just with additional planning going into place, it's going to be out of control. The school system is not equipped. I brought up all those issues last meeting up and nobody really heard me. It was still passed even though the employees for the city agreed that it should be revised. So I wanted to bring that to your all attention so that you could be aware of everything that's happening, that maybe you may not be in full contact and experiencing what is actually happening. That's all, and I thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Okay, next, John Price.
Hey, how y'all doing? We have an issue, only one issue, and it's all due to the water system in our house. It has got so much chlorine in it to the point that where in my floaty, in my commode, in the tank, has completely deteriorated off of it. I'm having to turn my pipes on and off with a monkey wrench
A pair of grip pliers.
and a pair of grip pliers on top of that. And on top of that, we're having to pay a $648 and $89.68 water bill because supposedly we have had water on since October without paying our bill. Which me and my husband right here, John T. Price, know differently. Because we have been going with water from October till the end of February. This is the 6th day that I've been without water and I'm having to go to the grocery stores, the Family Dollars, the Dollar Generals, any store I can get to get jugs of water to fill my tank up, my toilet. So whenever I take a crap or something like that, it don't stink my house up. So is there any way possible that y'all can help me out with an issue that I'm having at hand?
I've asked the staff to look into whatever issue there is there with customer service.
Yes, sir.
I can tell you exactly what's going on. But before I do that, let me ask
Into the microphone, then.
Before I do that, let me ask you all a question. Had y'all ever had your lives nearly threatened that it would be taken away from you because of the kind of water you drink?
Oh yeah, that's what I forgot. He had an access to a tube that was swollen up real bad. Had to take antibiotics 10 days in a row. And on top of that, had to eat soup, water. This stuff tastes like bleach. Pure bleach.
Yes, because the concentration of it is too high. I know this because I've had the water in my house tested twice. Once in 2020 and once again at the beginning of 2022. And both of the people that came there and tested my water said that the EPA is dangerously too high.
Baby,
And
turn around. I want
that's
you
what's,
to do it. So
that's what's
just do
hurting me
it.
right
I
there.
want you to see something. Not that. You see that spot right there? You see that piece right there? That's a bald spot because of y'all's, our water here. That's because of our water here. Turn around so you can see better. You see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, sir, that's all we
Okay.
wanted to
Well, then
complain
we're
about
into it.
and have something to say about. And y'all have a blessed night.
Okay.
Hang on, I got one other thing.
It's time up.
The one thing that I don't see happening here needs to start happening. Because let's face the facts here. We're still going through inflation and there's also a threat of a recession. I can't turn on my TV or radio without hearing that. And those of us that really need the help, we don't really get it. And I'm here to say, why doesn't the city of Lake City have a heart towards the people that really need the help the most, instead of getting the classic runaround?
Okay, well, we'll look into it.
Yes, sir, Mr. DeWitt, and y'all have a blessed night now.
Okay, next is Ron Williams.
You don't take care of that, Paul? Don't take care of that? Never know you need my help. Mr. Mayor, I want to just come by and say thank you. Ricky, thank you. I really appreciate it. Jake, thank you so much. Mr. Mayor, thank you. Todd, really appreciate it. And Shveli, you're always welcome whenever you want to come. We had a great time on Sunday, and we learned a lot. We learned a lot from our community. We learned a lot from our leaders, and we learned a lot from those leaders that are not even here, that are from Lake City. And I believe that we have a great team together, that we're going to be putting together a task and some solving problems that we can share with you. And we just want you to continue to support us and continue to be active and come out to the events and just be welcoming for us. We welcome you. We want you out there. We want you with us so we can try to figure this out together. Right? So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
It did my heart very well to see all of you come out.
Thank you for
Even
doing that.
even though we had a lot of violence yesterday morning, we had a great crowd out and a lot of people who were concerned about our city, and they want to see that our city going into a different direction. And again, I just want to solicit your continued support to us, and we're working to bring some solutions to our city. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cloud chase.
Okay, Barbara Lemley.
I wanted to address the issues when you open for public hearings rather than now. Is that all right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
What was it you wanted to speak on?
The Bascom Norris, the Hunter project.
Okay. Okay. Item 3 is discussion of possible action seeking direction regarding the CDBG CV grant for registered community center. Mr. Dial.
Thank you, Mayor. This particular grant has been around for a while. You all just approved it at the first of the year. It was originally put in back when Mr. Helfenberger and Dan Sweat were here. And when I came in and started looking at this, I really don't support this grant because if you look at the $2 million on it and the way it was written up to be used as an original COVID grant, it really does nothing for the Richardson Community Center. It basically would do a little bit for some of the infrastructure around it. The problem with that is several months ago when we went down there and looked at it, and being in the construction business for so many years, looking at the land and stuff down there and hearing the history of it, the first thing that needs to be addressed with the center is the flooding issue. And that's gonna be a very expensive, very long process. It's not gonna do any good to try to fix a way to get to the building if it's flooded. And this particular grant, like was mentioned earlier, really does nothing for the building. And it ties us up for 5 years on an agreement that when you take the $2 million, it's not really $2 million. By the time you put in engineering, design, and all of that stuff, you may at the most, and with today's prices, you might be looking at maybe a little over $1 million, maybe 1.3 million. And to me, for the length of time and the obligation the city would be held to, I don't feel that it would be prudent for the city to continue with this grant. I'm asking for direction. If it's the council's desire that we continue with the grant, we can. I don't feel that it's in the best interest of the city. Even if we had, depending on what happens with Richardson, even if we had the county administer the grant, at the end of the day, the city is responsible for the grant. Even if the county wanted to keep the grant and we use it, if whatever happens with Richardson, if the county doesn't fulfill their part of the grant, the city's still liable for it. And I don't think for this amount of money, which it is a lot of money, for what it can do for the center itself, it's just not worth the long-term effects I think it would have.
Any comments, questions?
With this grant, you're saying it won't help this flood issue. So if we give this money back, what would we have to do to start with, I guess, the infrastructure of the communities that are in the flooding issue?
First thing we would need to do would be looking for funding sources. First, what we'd have to do is get a site assessment done, which will be a full-blown survey, elevation, everything, and find the best way to move the water. And the reason I say that's expensive, piping is probably not going to be, it would be a partial fix, but at some point you're going to have to put in pumps. That's why a lot of your cities pump stormwater. It's an expensive venture, but there's really no way, based on the elevations there, the way that building sits, the only way you could really get that building out of the flood zone is if you jack the whole building up, and that's not really an option. So the other thing would be to come in and have a study done and then try to find it. These grants like this that would pay to get the stormwater issue done. And that's the first thing we want to do is, we've already reached out, want to start trying to look for as many stormwater grants as we can for the Richardson Center.
Because that's the kind of grant that Swanee River Water Management might have.
There are several different ones. You could apply from everything from Swanee River to DEP, anything that involves stormwater runoff.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I noticed you had County Manager David Kraus. Mr. Kraus, could you come over and address this issue as well? You probably know a little bit more about it than most of us.
How do you think? Certainly, thank you very much. David Kraus, Lakeview Avenue. Paul's correct, it is a city grant. It was written back when Mr. Helfenberger was city manager by Mr. Sweat. The majority of the money is intended to do improvements in the neighborhood around the Richardson Center and not the Richardson Center itself.
Wow.
It is a COVID grant, but it was never really intended to be a COVID grant. It was just, the center was included to be able to justify the money for the neighborhood improvements, I'll be honest. It is strictly a city grant. The county offered to help, but ultimately the city is completely responsible for the grant. City would have to make whatever decisions you want on the grant, which is why I was asking, because the state's wanting to know if you wish to move forward or not. But it's really a city decision, not a county decision.
Mr. Mayor,
Okay.
what's the limitations of what the grant funds can be used for?
The scope of work that was put in the grant, under today's prices, you can't do. Let's be honest, prices have gone up, $2 million doesn't go as far. So it is designed to, there was some AC improvements at the Richardson Center in terms of putting in filtration. There was touchless fixtures, again, not big deals. And that was, again, not to spread COVID, but the majority of the grant was intended to put in sidewalks, streetlights, and improvements to the neighborhood to make the center more accessible to the neighborhood.
So it's not limited here by which roads around the center, just an area.
No matter what you do, you would have to probably apply for a modification, simply because, again, the budget won't cover what was in the original grant application.
Could this grant be modified to address the flooding issues?
I don't know, we would have to ask.
Because it's pretty broad what this can be used for. It's a one-time shot. This isn't a grant that if we don't get it, we can apply for it again.
No, there is
it.
no more.
This is the one time to get this free money. And then any other CDBG grant, we can't even apply for until our other CDBG grant is completed. So if there was a way that this could be done, and even if it only improved some of the roads and some of the sidewalks, even if it didn't affect, things that wouldn't affect the flooding, because those roads and sidewalks over there really need some work, and the lights on them as well. I think there should be a way. We have the guy that came and we did the hearing on it. We looked at what we were gonna do. I would think there'd be a way we could use this grant to benefit the people that live around Richardson, and I think that's the key thing. Or could we modify it and use this as the seed money? Because here's the one thing I know, that free money doesn't come around often, and this is our one shot at these funds. These funds are gone. If we tell them we're not getting them, that's it. We're not gonna apply for these again.
And you're right, there are COVID-related CDBG grant. There are no more COVID-related CDBG grants.
Well, my concern is the flooding issue, and that needs to be addressed. There's no need of putting the place up if it's gonna flood. And like, again, pretty much, everybody here that looks like me knows about Richardson Community Center. And then throughout the years, it has been a flooding issue. So I think we definitely need to look at flooding issue at the community center.
You're absolutely correct. If you stand at the doorway, you can tell the road is higher than the entrance. As long as your road is higher than your building, that's where the water's gonna run off.
Yes, you're absolutely correct in saying that. Again, I've been in that situation where they had a function there, and all the water came in, it just went right into the gym and to the kitchen. It's not just the gym itself, the community center, it's also the kitchen as well, so. And I could not figure that out. It seemed like the water was coming from the roof and coming down instead of going the flooding. But it was definitely coming from up top and coming from the ground level as well, so.
And you're right, the building itself is the low point. So that's the direction drainage flows.
Wow.
But there is that thing in the grant that it has to be continued for 5 years.
I think it's gonna be used continually. I hope it's never not used. But if we can modify this grant to start with some of those issues, I mean, I don't know what all we can modify it for. I mean, just even if we only get if we can fix or get started fixing the issues with this one-time fund that's, going away. Not too often you get a chance or a bite at $2 million that is available.
Mr. Mayor, yeah, excuse me. So here's the problem, Mr. Mayor. First of all, Mr. Sampson don't know nothing about that.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Hold on.
Shut it down.
Just talk to us about.
I'm telling you about the grant. I was the one, me, Mr. Sweat, and Thomas.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor, that's a lie.
What is,
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Hold on, you can't tell me, this boy or girl can't tell me.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor, that's Mr. Boy to you.
Well, Mr. Girl, I mean.
Mr. Boy to you, you're the one that wears the dress.
Yeah, well, you come pull it up then.
Mr. Mayor, shut it down.
Yeah, you shut it down.
No.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Mayor, move over, let me sit there, I'll shut it down.
No, you wanna sit there, boy, you ain't gonna sit nowhere.
Mr. Boy to you, Mr. Boy to you, Mr. Boy to you.
No, we're not on that.
Mr. Mayor, the prison bride, I'd have him sit down if I were you.
What?
I'm asking you to sit down.
No, Mr. Mayor, I'm not sitting down because I'm gonna speak to the issue that I got up here to speak on. I helped write the grant. He can't tell me who wrote the grant. I wrote the grant with Mr. Sweat.
But you, this thing about calling names in here is done.
He called it point of order because I'm correcting him. It's point of information.
But anyway, we know what's going on. I'm not.
It's point of information. He can't holler point of order every time somebody come and clear up a lie.
Okay.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. It's not a lie.
Okay, we're done with that.
Okay. What are we done with, Mr. Mayor?
Any public comments? We're dealing with it from up here. So what's the council's pleasure?
If you had a grant writer,
Mr.
you wouldn't have
Mayor,
this
I make
problem.
a recommendation that we see what we can modify this
You
to. I
can't
know we
modify
have,
the grant.
Mr. Mayor, point of order, Mr. Mayor, point of order.
I talked to the grant writer.
Mr. Mayor, point of order.
You can't modify.
Mr. Mayor, point of order.
Okay, let's talk on at the council. The audience is out of this.
You know, we have a guy that came that did all the hearings for us. We have a liaison there. Has this been discussed with him on what the modifications can do? Because this is a one-time CDBG grant, so you can do things here you can't do with the other CDBG grants.
We can find out.
I mean, before we say no to $2 million, if we can use it another way that's beneficial, I mean, I would be for trying to see what we can do with it.
Well, let's see what we can.
I believe that question has already been asked, if it can be modified. And if I remember correctly, there's very limited modification, and it's nothing that would benefit Richardson Community Center. And I want to ask Mr. Dowd, if you remember the question that came up in the meeting when we were there with the department heads about the modifications, and I believe, did Mr. Kraus lead? Mr. Kraus, do
Speak
you?
into the microphone so we can hear you.
Mr. Kraus, do you recall the question about the modification? And there is very limited, if any, modifications that can be done with that grant?
It was if you remember, yes, I was there with you and Paul. There was a deadline that's impossible to meet, first of all, with the grant, which was, I believe it was September, was it not? And there are, so it's gonna have to be modified no matter what, but you're right, there are certain things that can be modified to do and certain things that can't. Whatever you're gonna modify it to do has to meet the criteria of the grant itself. So it would have to make the center more accessible. So you would have to be able to try and figure out how you're making the center more accessible to allow COVID testing, if you wanna use these funds. I mean, you'd have to stretch it.
So if the center became more available because of mitigation of flood issues and getting to it, the way I read it, that could be possible. Would that be your assessment?
My assessment would be you could ask, and they would either tell you yes or no.
Anybody else have any questions, comments?
Mr. Kraus, if I'm not mistaken, they had said something about the roof was leaking, and this grant was to help repair that roof, am I correct?
The grant was not to repair the roof, but to put in filtration systems on the AC system that's on the roof. But if there is a leak in the roof, I'm not aware of it, but it's certainly something we'd want to get fixed.
Oh yeah, there's a major leak in the roof as well.
Okay, so I'll have maintenance look at it.
May I ask, where in the roof? 'Cause I don't recall in it.
On the kitchen side. I've been here all my life, so I can tell you about that community center more so than probably anybody in here.
Very different.
With the exception of a couple of people, but anyway, the water is.
We can direct maintenance to look at it.
Yes, it's
Maybe
coming
get a
from
roof out there.
the kitchen and on the, I wanna say it's the west side of the gym as you're going in, it'll be on the west side. It's coming down the walls. And that's just part of it. I'm not saying that, that's all of it, but I was just wondering if it's leaking on the top with this grant, is there any way we can get some things done with, parts of that grant?
For that particular problem, probably not.
Okay.
But again, we can ask.
And if that be the case, you still have to consider the amount of money. Is there enough money to deal with the roof as well as what's already set to use for sidewalks and these other things. Because I remember, and even Mr., let me see if I get it right, no? Okay, I'm talking with him, speaking with him about the grant. I'm pretty sure that there's not many adjustments, modifications that can be done with that grant. And we're really losing time here, putting off these things. We need to just go ahead and make a decision. If
How long does it take to get an answer to that?
I can call them tomorrow and ask. I have to call them tomorrow anyway and update them. They're getting a little, they were seeking an answer as to whether the city wanted to move forward or not. So I have to call them tomorrow anyway. I can get back to you after I speak with them in the morning. They'll probably have to run it up the chain, but.
Yeah. But it shouldn't take a long time.
No.
And this is gonna be to assist with the drainage for us.
Whatever you tell me. Again, this is a city grant, so you have to give me the direction.
Well, I would think that, again, that the drainage is very important out there. And I would think that that should be a part, if it can be modified, that the drainage be added to this or however it can. Like I say, $2 million.
And Mr. Dell is correct. You're gonna spend approximately, what, $50,000 on grant administration. You're gonna spend engineering, design, a good chunk, so you're probably, you're not gonna get $2 million. Maybe $1.5 million.
It's not gonna go very far.
In this day and age, it does not go far.
I agree with Mr. Hill that we should see if we could start that process, because one thing is, it's possible that through this grant, maybe we can do a partial, but get enough on the engineering to know what we need in the future too, to mitigate some of that with the $300,000 that's set aside. Because that's what we have for engineering in the grant.
Well, I'll make the motion for Mr. Kraus to check into what we can do with this grant and what we can adjust for the drainage.
Second.
Okay. Now, let me ask you, if we say we wanna do it, to fix flooding, but we can only get, what they're saying is maybe just to diagnose the problem, I guess we need to ask that too. You see what I'm saying? If it's not enough to finish it, at least we can put that in there.
Okay, and if they were to say that was not a possibility, which way would you like to go?
Well, my thing is, they're giving us this money, but we're looking to make the place pretty. But if it's got a drainage issue, the pretty doesn't matter. So, just me, I would say fix the drainage problem first and then look at the outside.
But he's saying if it ain't possible, if they won't do it to drainage, you want to move forward with the grant or not.
I think we're missing the point here. It's a COVID grant. COVID. That's why it's the touchless sinks, touchless commodes. It's for COVID. That's not going to help out with flooding. It's COVID.
But there's other things, so like it can be used for transportation to and from, creating access to and from, walking to and from, and that's where the primary balance was gonna be spent. It wasn't, the touchless things were included as well, but one of the primary things was to help the access, because the roads are so rough right there.
I know that question was asked about that flooding, and they're not gonna do it.
Are you in favor of going forward with it if it's not?
I'm not.
What's everybody else's?
Is there a way to get a list of what other things you can do with it, or no? It's kind of, this grant's kind of different than a lot of the ones they've done in the past.
The grant is already written. So what's in the scope of work is what they're expecting. So they would want you to, if
And
you
either
want
way,
a
it needs to be
modification,
modified.
you're requesting the modification. They're not gonna give you a list of alternatives.
I would say if we can't modify it that way, then if you change your motion to say if they can't modify it, that, you know, then we would cancel it. That would be acceptable probably.
Well, I also, under our city manager, Paul Dow, he's saying that it's not, it won't be conducive to us. So in turn, just by, he's looked into it, I'm in agreement with Mr. Dow. Do not go forward with this grant.
Even if they can modify it.
They won't, I don't think they can.
No. You got a motion and a second.
Okay.
Mr.
Mr. Hill, is your motion, is you adding what
Well-
Sampson recommended?
It won't cost us anything to just ask, And if they say no, we won't move forward.
That's your motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion? Ms. Sykes, will you call the roll?
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Ms. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Jernigan?
Yes.
Mayor Witt?
Yes. Okay. Discussion possible action, capital outlay paving projects, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Within your agenda package, you'll see the recommendation from the engineer about our capital outlay road projects. If y'all are in agreement with the recommendation, we'll move forward.
Any questions, comments?
Yes, over here by the daycare, you do have that road or that project in this agenda packet, am I correct?
We have Camp and Marsh, that intersection right there.
Thank you very much, I appreciate that.
Hey, I don't have my packet right in front of me. What streets do you have in District 12?
I'm not sure, I don't think James Montgomery is in your district. I don't think James Montgomery is in 12.
It's not.
So, yeah.
Your client's right there.
I said Ricky's district.
Montgomery?
Well, I have, just a few streets in District 12 that needs to be addressed. I got with Mr. Dow on, what's the one right there, coming off of 90 there when you go down,
Yeah, that's the one we got with Anderson, and we were just gonna pave that one side
yes.
and try to get that done, as a patch on that side until we could come up with funding to do the whole road. And those are probably some of the ones I think, when we talked with, North Florida the last couple weeks ago or so, that we're putting in for several scope grants this year to see if we can get that whole piece there paid.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I noticed in the outlay, Gwynn Lake Phase 2 is in there too, but I didn't see it on this because I guess we're just talking about just the road part.
That's correct.
So is there an update on the Gwynn Lake Phase 2?
I think the last meeting we had with the Swanee River that we're looking for funding and looking at the options that we can do right now.
Well, I'm tired of kicking this can down the road. This here been going on for some years. And that can kicking, it's done got old. Something needs to happen. I've been in this seat back in the seat since 20. And this was before you all got in your positions. The ball has been dropped several times, but it's time for somebody to pick up this ball and run with it. So I'm tired of hearing that We're waiting on Swanee River Water Management. I talked with Mr. Marshall, the same day I talked to you, Mr. Dow, and UD. Gwen Lake is nowhere on their radar. So something needs to be done about this. Sorry.
Okay.
Can I speak on that?
Sure.
I understand your frustrations, Mr. Hill. I'm frustrated too, because, the day we met out there with Mr. Marshall and some others from Swanee River, they basically told us one thing. Ms. Hare was present as well. I talked with her Friday, and she had the same, story that I had. That Swanee River and Leroy and them stood there and told us what we should be able to do. And then the next week, we get a letter from Swanee River or a call from Swanee River saying we can't do that anymore. Basically, where we're at right now is when we were out there that day, we wanted Swanee River to go ahead and let us come in and see what we could clean out around the edges to start getting that vegetation out of there. Leroy, along with Swanee River, were pretty much on board with that. And we were gonna use the funds, that 250,000 that was allocated to a phase up the ravine, that we were gonna transfer and use for that. They said they didn't see that to be a problem. Well, now it's a problem. So just going back into with Swanee River, they'll tell you one thing one day and something else the next day. Now, as I explained to Ms. Hare yesterday, now they're wanting us to do the structure into it before they'll even consider issuing a permit for us to go in there and start clearing and dredging the vegetation out of the lake. So we were ready to go to work down with what little bit of money that we have, but we cannot touch anything in that lake until Swanee River gives us a permit. We talked with North Florida last week to go ahead and put additional stuff in the portal. Why they say it's not on the radar, I have no idea, because we call them all the time.
We might need to change firms, because something needs to be done about this.
Okay, what's the pleasure of council?
One more question, Mr. President. So, Mr. Johnson, we look at this, these are in order of the direction that they came back.
That is correct.
Yeah, that's pretty much, I mean, that Montgomery's bad. And then we are moving forward also with the grant on Putnam's deal, right?
That is Putnam.
Yeah, it was in the budget, but I think we talked about the grant on that recently.
You mean Patterson?
I'm sorry, Patterson, yeah.
Yes, that is correct.
Asking for direction.
I'd make the motion to move forward. I mean, we budgeted the funds, let's move forward in the direction they're recommending.
Second. A motion and a second, any further discussion? Ms. Ox, you call the roll, please.
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Jernigan?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Ms. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Webb?
Yes. Okay, new business, open the first public and transmittal hearing. An ordinance of the City Council 2023-2242 on first reading, amending the future land use plan map of the city of Lake City. Comprehensive plan is amended relating to an amendment of more than 50 acres of land pursuant to an application CPA 2301 by the property owner of said acreage under the amendment procedures established in sections 163.61 through 163.3248. Mr. Kenny, you want to read that?
Ordinance 2023-2242, an ordinance of the City of Lake City, Florida, amending the future land use plan map of the City of Lake City Comprehensive Plan as amended, relating to an amendment of more than 50 acres of land pursuant to an application CPA 23-01 by the property owner of said acreage under the amendment procedures established in section 163.3161 through 163.3248 Florida statutes as amended, providing for changing the future land use classification from county residential low density, less than or equal to 2 dwelling units per acre, county commercial and city commercial, to city residential, moderate density, less than or equal to 4 dwelling units per acre, on certain lands within the corporate limits of the city of Lake City, Florida, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date.
Mr. Dickenbach, you want to speak to us?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, thank you. My name is Jerry Diedenbach, and if I could have the PowerPoint slide, I will promise I'll try to do this in 5 minutes or less, sir.
Okay.
And
Let's see. It's trying.
I usually did that 5.
You start at about 5?
Or you can click the little button down there and it'll go into the presenter mode. Oh, hit escape. Hit the one that looks like a little screen right there.
Thank you. That's it.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Jerry Diedenbach. I'm a professional land use planner from Alachua, Florida, and we are here tonight on behalf of Garden Street Communities with a large-scale land use amendment and a rezoning. Can I get a click, please? The request tonight before you is to go from Columbia County Residential Low, Columbia County Commercial, and Lake City Commercial on approximately 100 acres of land that's on Bascom Norris Drive. And we are also requesting that you rezone this from Columbia County Residential Single Family 2, Columbia County Commercial Intensive, and Lake City Commercial General, all to residential over the entirety of the 100 acres. The intent is to take newly annexed lands in the city of Lake City and apply City of Lake City's land use and zoning on them. We want to unify the land area entitlements specifically for residential, 2 different types of residential, single family detached and single family attached townhomes on here. This will deliver new, much needed housing in the city of Lake City, and this will offer a phased development program that will go over several years, which will allow the community to create infrastructure upgrades in the form of roads, water, and sewer, as well as increased capacity over the school system. We see that this opportunity also brings to the city an increase in the tax base within the urban development area. It increases housing opportunities in the city of Lake City and offers a diversity in housing type by offering single-family detached as well as townhomes for people who don't want to have the trouble of yards but still want to live in a residential community in a home that they would own. This offers also the opportunity to create many jobs in the local trades because we will employ people all the way from site clearing all the way through final painting and delivery of these houses across your professional trades here. And this also has the ability to remove and reduce potential traffic impacts on Bascom Norris as well as Marvin Burnett Road because the existing land use and zoning has a higher potential intensity on it than the land use that is being requested in the form of residential.
Hey, sir, can you slow down just
Yes, sir.
You're going a little bit too fast for me.
Okay.
Because you said something about, just slow down just a hair.
Okay.
You can have 10 minutes if you need to, but just slow down some.
I was
please.
just trying to be courteous to the council.
Yes, you are courteous, but you're going a little bit too fast for me.
Okay, not a problem at all. So we are requesting, as opposed to a straight zoning category upon the 100 acres, what is called a planned residential development, or a PRD. That allows a phasing plan over time, and it allows design-specific requirements for the size of lots and setbacks, as well as certain things that will happen during the course of the development. We will be delivering 2 different housing types into the city, single-family detached lots with homes upon single-family residential lots, as well as townhomes that will be on property, but they will have a common wall. So you might have 6 units in a single building, and it reduces the entry cost for residents desiring to buy a home and not have a yard with it. They will still have garages on them, but they will be an attached single-family unit. So this is not a rental project, this is a for sale, fee simple type home ownership. And lastly, because this is a planned residential development, we are designating certain areas within the property that will have the development on it versus areas that will be set aside for the protection specifically of wetlands and areas on the site that are really undevelopable. This is an aerial of the overall property. Recently, you all annexed through the course of November and December of last year. This 100 acres is now totally within the city of Lake City, and now it is time to put city land use and city zoning on the property. This is an enlargement map of the area, and you can see in the context area that there are a lot of wet stormwater basins and wetland areas. Through the core of this site, you can see open water areas and wetlands that are on this site that extend off to the southwest. The high portion of the site is along Bascom Norris and the low portion of the site is here. So water is traveling from the northeast to the southwest across the site. And we will continue to support and reinforce that pattern. This is a timeline of the project that we started last year. The annexation was begun in October of 2022 and it concluded successfully here in January of 2023. Upon conclusion of the annexation and bringing the property into the city of Lake City, we applied for a large-scale land use amendment and a rezoning because the property is over 50 acres in size. Staff have reviewed the applications through the month of January and February, and because we learned of the questions that were surrounding the Tennis Forever property on Bascom Norris, we voluntarily held what was called a community workshop. Over at the public library, we came up to the library and we mailed notification to property owners surrounding the property to let them know our intent to apply for city land use and city zoning on the property. About a dozen folks showed up, some of which are in the room tonight, and we explained to them the intent of our project as well as the timeline. The next night, after that community meeting, we returned to Lake City and we stood in this room in front of your Planning and Zoning Board and explained the project at the Planning and Zoning Board. We received a 5-1 vote of approval recommending that the commission forward this application forward to the Department of Economic Opportunity in Tallahassee for review as you do in a large-scale amendment. Since that time, I want to let you and everybody else here know that we have had meetings with your professional staff. Steve Brown spoke at the meeting talking about traffic and other infrastructure issues. So last month, we had a meeting here in the city of Lake City, and we also had attendees from Columbia County. Mr. Kirby was there, Steve Brown was there, and they even brought folks from the Florida Department of Transportation. With me tonight in the third row here is Mr. Jim Harriet. He is a professional traffic engineer. He works in my office, so he attended on my behalf because I had a conflict. But also our clients were there, Gerald Sire, who's sitting next to Mr. Harriet, and John Pfeiffer here in the second row. They had a very productive meeting talking about transportation impacts as well as enhancements that we will be making in concert with this project. And so I believe that their recommendation would be at this time that we continue to move forward with this project. Tonight we are here requesting that you transmit this application to the state of Florida's Department of Economic Opportunity, and we are seeking your approval on that tonight. Following that, the Department of Economic Opportunity, through its clearinghouse mode, will submit the application around to the Department of Transportation, Department of Environmental Protection, Department of Education, and they will get comments and produce what's called an objections, recommendations, and comments report, or an ORC report. Upon receipt of that ORC report, if there are deficiencies that are noted, we will make modifications to the application so that the city can adopt the application in good form. After that, and hopefully later this summer, we will start what would be the site plan and platting process on this. And we want to assure you that once entitlements are approved, the platting and the engineering will begin. We have already been doing preliminary engineering on things such as traffic, looking at where lift stations might go. We know that we have to do off-site utilities in the form of a sewer extension, and all of that will occur, thank you. Perfect timing. And that will occur over the summer. We did have some delays, and I'm very happy that you all have a new attorney now, because originally the annexation application, the Regional Planning Council recommended that it be slowed, and we sat and we waited for several weeks on end for the annexation actually to move forward. But we feel that we need to move quickly here so that we can deliver much needed housing and increase the tax base in the city of Lake City. Through this entitlement, while we will finish the entitlements in April, hopefully, with land use and zoning, it will be 3+ years before the first 25 homes are constructed. This project anticipates about 300 to 325 single-family residential homes over the 100 acres of land. And so you can obviously tell that this is a multi-year process that will go probably at least a decade to 15 years into the future. Mr. Mayor and council members, this is the existing future land use map that shows residential low-density county land use, similar to the surrounding context area, and it shows these red areas here of commercial land use along the frontage of Bascom Norris. We are requesting that you unify the land use across the entirety of the property to be residential moderate density, City of Lake City land use, just like across the street, which is a land use density that allows up to 4 dwelling units per acre. But we are only really requesting about 3.25 units per acre through the zoning, and I will explain that in a moment. The current zoning upon the property is residential single family 2, Columbia County, and then it also has commercial general and commercial intensive zoning on there. And we are recommending that this turn into one zoning type of planned residential development, PRD. This is consistent with your comprehensive plan, specifically policy future land use policy I.1.1. The project is on Bascom Norris and it is within the urban development area of the city, right here. This is also consistent with comprehensive plan policy future land use element 1I.1.3, and it deals with the allocation of amount and types of land use for residential, commercial, and industrial, and recreation land use. We are bringing more residential land use into the city proper. This also meets the housing element goal number 3 to provide decent, safe, and sanitary housing and suitable environments at an affordable cost to meet the city's present and future citizens, including residents with special needs. So this, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, is the proposed preliminary development plan, or the PD zoning plan. If I could get one click on there. As you recall, you saw over here by the ball fields that there are several wet basins, and I showed you that there is an active water feature across this property which drains from the northeast to the southwest. All of these areas that are shown in green are wetlands on the area, and they will be buffered consistent with your city standards and the Water Management District standards so that none of those areas will be interrupted. The only time we will interrupt them is we have to build some sort of a bridge or a culvert or some feature to get over this portion of this connected wetland system here. The areas now that illustrate in A are the areas where actually residential homes would be. And along the frontage of this property is our main entrance. This is being designed to align with the ball fields across the street. So along the straightest portion of the road here, there will be a clear entrance. During the course of our recent meeting with Mr. Kirby and members of the city staff, Steve Brown and Robert Angelo, we talked about how we would be making modifications here in the form of turn lanes that would be dedicated to get the residents in and out of this property safely, as well as having a divided sort of entrance here that would allow safe stacking and entrance into the residential neighborhood. The development standards are as follows here. We have 2 types of homes that are being proposed, single family detached and single family attached, and they can exist in any of the A areas on the property. In addressing some of the common concerns that we always hear when we're changing land use or zoning is compatibility. This is a 100% residential development proposal. It is not having any mixed use nor commercial or institutional uses within that area. When talking about traffic, the removal of the commercial land use and zoning actually results in a reduction of the possible number of trips. And I'm going to show you all a table here that shows how many fewer trips will exist with a residential project as opposed to a project with the existing land use and zoning. We have obtained a letter from the superintendent of schools that has confirmed that capacity is available, and over time, what we feel this project with smaller homes and townhomes will probably be a place where first-time home buyers or empty nesters are. So there's a good chance that there will be less children in this development than a traditional larger home site. The property is within the urban development area, so utilities are available. We do realize that we will be building a lift station within the property and doing a sanitary sewer extension to the north and northwest. And we've also been addressing concerns from the Cannon Creek Air Park. At the closest point, we are 2,225 feet from their runways, And this is out of what are called the FAA's runway protection zones, or the RPZs, for both runways 1836 and 927. The project is not in alignment with any of the runways, nor is it in any area where you'd actually be in any of the pattern traffic over that. So as you can see here, this is the future land use map we are requesting of 4 dwelling units per acre, which is comparable with the city's 4 dwelling units per acre to the immediate northwest. The county's land use density is lower in the residential, but certainly higher here where the commercial land use is today that we wish to wipe off of the map and make this 100% residential. With addressing the common concerns of traffic, if I could get 2 clicks here, the potential traffic that can be generated from this at build out is 2,907 trips, whereas here, under the existing land uses, if this were developed as shopping center, general office, or maybe a food store in there, you could generate up to 26,148 trips. So it is a reduction of potential traffic off of this site of 23,241 trips. Single family homes generate a tremendously lower volume of traffic than a commercial shopping center and offices. This is the letter that we received from the Columbia County School Board and the Office of the Superintendent. They have stated that there is sufficient capacity to provide education and support for students who may eventually live on the subject property, and the school board will be able to address capacity proactively because, again, this is a phased project over multiple years. As far as utilities go, this is within your designated urban development area, so utilities are available, and we are knowledgeable that we have to do a sanitary sewer extension for this project. This specifically is the route we will most likely take. We will probably have a lift station located in the lower portion of the site topographically so that we can collect all the utility and effluent waste at the lowest point and then pump it via a lift station up to Bascom Norris and out here to Sisters Welcome Road. I know this is a little thin to see, but here is the project area. I'm going to outline this with the laser. This is the 100 acres here. Here you can see the creek coming across it. There is 1836, the north-south paved 25-foot wide concrete runway. And here is 927, the grass runway that runs to the east-west. These polygons that you see at either end are the FAA runway protection zones. You can see here, this one is actually over a neighborhood. We are not in the runway protection zones or the approach areas for either one of these runways, and so we do not think that this will cause a problem, mainly and keyly because we are keeping the approaches free of obstructions, which is a very important thing when you are proximate to an airport. The city has had its staff review this, and if I can get a click, please. During the course of their review, there were no issues noted, with the exception of letting us know that we needed to do a sanitary sewer extension, and then there was questions about stormwater and traffic. We took this and went to a meeting in February with our professional engineers, with representatives from the city, the county, and the Florida Department of Transportation, and we believe we can address all the concerns that were brought forward. So with that, thank you for the extra time. I was trying to be respectful of your 5 minutes as I was told. There is one additional element here, and I gave the clerk a copy of the letter from the Columbia County Economic Development Authority, and they are in support of this project, and I gave a copy so that every member of the council, as well as the manager, the clerk, and the attorney would have one at the dais. I am more than happy to answer any questions you may have, as well as Mr. Harriet, who is a professional traffic engineer, and Seth Wood, who's another professional planner here, who has been instrumental in the preparation of this application.
Yes, sir, I got, Mayor, you mind? Go ahead. I just got a couple of questions. I mean, you were talking so fast, I couldn't keep up with everything you were saying.
I'm sorry.
However, the traffic is my main concern right now. I actually live over there in that area there, and when you have like a softball or a baseball tournament, and they do those regular over there, and there's cars like on the north side, the south side, they're east and west, they're parked everywhere. So I was just wondering, did you do a traffic study when they had a softball tournament? Because they seem like they have them like every other weekend, maybe out there. I don't know if you ever been out there when they have one, but there's cars all over the place. Have you ever did that traffic study with all the cars out there?
Mr. Mayor, to answer that question more accurately, I'd ask that Mr. Harriet would come up here.
Sure.
We did not do counts specifically during an event, but we did do counts, and Mr. Harriet has visited the site numerous times. Part of our response to what we're working on is threefold. Number one is to make modifications to the entranceway so that there's safe turn lanes in and out of the project, okay? Perfect. Number two is we are recommending to the city what we call strategic elements such as transportation system management and transportation demand management. Things like changing the timing of lights, getting people out there for events by perhaps a shuttle from the hotels to the ball field. So not everyone is bringing a car or an SUV or a van, okay? And then thirdly, we provided an entire list of available programs that the Florida Department of Transportation could coordinate with Columbia County, since the road is under their jurisdiction, and then programs like SCRAP and SCOP and SIGP and some of the other funds out there, LAP funds, that could be used to help make the conditions safer out there. We realize when we come in and there's a problem today, it's not our fault, but it's our responsibility to work collaboratively with the city and the county to come up with some solutions. So, Jim?
Mr. Mayor, council members, Jerry did a good job. Jim Harriet with CHW Professional Consultants. Jerry did a good job summarizing it. Our counts focused on the PM peak hour, which is typically the heaviest hour of traffic in the roadway, but event traffic could put higher peaks over periods of time. Our analysis indicated that we would need left turn lanes, right turn lanes into the development to accommodate the traffic. And we also identified an issue. Our impact area, so the area we studied, went out to intersections until you reached a point where you'd probably typically say, the development won't significantly impact this area. So we were looking at all the signalized intersections and unsignalized intersections in the area. We went out as far as the state road in both directions. And at Sisters Welcome, we identified we had heard complaints about Sisters Welcome being a traffic, a lot of backups, a lot of multiple queues to get through the signal. So we analyzed it because the volumes, when we modeled it, didn't seem to show that would be the case. The volumes were actually much lower than the maximum capacity that the signal could handle. So we provided some signal timing recommendations to the county so that may be adjusted at some point in the future to deal with not just the impacts of the development, but the traffic volumes that are there.
Well, again, I can tell you, trying to get in, trying to get out, it's gonna be very, very hard to do. And if you guys can come up with solutions to that problem, I think it'll be a good project, for everybody. But that's my main concern, is that traffic. I've been over there for 35 years in that area, so I pretty much know about the ball games. And softball is a big deal here in Columbia County. And I saw all the land clearing and everything. I didn't know if you was gonna be on the south side, or you were gonna be on the north side. I didn't know if you was gonna be on both sides. But that is gonna be one of the major obstacles that you're gonna encounter. That's why I was wondering, did you do a traffic study? Because I'm telling you that putting a lane in there, a turning lane in, turning lane out, that traffic is ferocious doing an event. Just check it out for me. Next time matter of fact, next time they're in there, I'll give you a call. And I'll let you see where they park at.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I heard the comment during the earlier item too, that you've been here longer than most folks, being your whole life.
Yes.
But I wanted you all to know that we did do a professional traffic study and signed and sealed by a professional engineer, and we are already proactively working with the county and the Florida Department of Transportation to solve issues out there.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, anybody? If not, thank you very much.
Thank you for your additional time.
Okay, and Ms. Lemley?
Barbara Lemley, my concern is, it appears to have only one interest in one means of ingress egress, and I see that as a problem. I live out at the golf course, and there's one way in and one way out. And when something happens at the hospital or at Commerce and 90, I can't go home. You know, and I think that needs to be taken in. And Frank Armeo's not here, but in a commercial development, you need to have two means of egress. Maybe that's not possible, but that needs to be considered as well. And the other, well, one of the other ones is, of course, we need affordable housing. However, the income of most residents here in Columbia County could not qualify for a home in that income if they're going to be $300,000. And the last thing I have, when this property was annexed, and this might be for an attorney question, did this create an enclave?
Off the top of my head, I don't think it did.
Because there's a county road. Was there any property contiguous with the city when this was annexed? Because the road does not count. And I discussed this with Mr. Kraus, that this, you know, created an enclave. And you're not supposed to have enclaves. And so I think that needs to, you know, maybe it's too past the point. I wasn't able to come when that was being annexed. And the other thing is the roads, the traffic is heavy, as Mr. Jernigan has stated. And one area that was not mentioned is, you know, there's 93.5 acres. Actually, how much property will be taken up by the wetlands? How much is there actually developable property? Or do they even know at this point? And the cost for turn lanes, will that be brought on by the cost of the developer? And will there be impact fees attached to all these properties? The city needs every dime they can get. And if there's not an impact fee now, there needs to be one that is done. And maybe he can address the fact if it was an enclave was created when this happened.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing, move it to adoption of City Council Ordinance 2023-2242.
Mayor.
Somebody want to speak?
I think you want to answer my question. Did you?
Yeah, I'm ready to have anybody sign up.
Can I make a comment first?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to read something for the record. The minutes will reflect that Liz Fryer did speak earlier during public participation in opposition, and she provided a petition to stop, deny, amending the official zoning atlas, which is the next ordinance that you're gonna be voting on, which goes hand in hand with this one that they spoke of, Land Development Regulations Z2301. I just wanted that since this is a
Okay,
transfer
I'm
hearing.
glad you did that.
Yeah, I just want to let you know, your comments will be added into this record.
Okay, what's the pleasure of council?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion for approval on its first reading of City Council Ordinance 2023-2242.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Sykes, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Jernigan?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Ms. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Witten?
Yes. Okay, that one done. Okay, number 6, the City Council Ordinance 2023-2243 on first reading. Mr. Terry, Ken, would you read that right there?
Ordinance number 2023-2243, an ordinance of the City of Lake City, Florida, amending the official zoning atlas of the City of Lake City Land Development Regulations as amended, relating to the rezoning of more than 10 contiguous acres of land pursuant to an application C-23-01 by the property owner of said acreage, providing for rezoning from County Residential Single Family 2, RSF 2, County Commercial Intensive, CI, and City Commercial General, CG, to City Plan Residential Development, PRD, of certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Lake City, Florida, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date.
Pleasure of council is the city council ordinance 2023-2243.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion for approval of City Council Ordinance 2023-2243.
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion by council? Side, if you call the roll, please.
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Jernigan?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Ms. Young? Mayor Witt?
Yes. Okay, we're moving to resolutions. We have City Council Resolution 2023-018. Mr. Kenny, would you read that by title?
City Council Resolution number 2023-018, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Lake City, Florida, authorizing the acceptance and execution of a supplemental grant agreement with the State of Florida Department of Transportation for up to $117,626 in eligible costs associated with the resurfacing of Patterson Avenue from United States Highway 90 to State Road 100A and providing for an effective date.
The pleasure is the City Council Resolution 2023-018.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to approve resolution 2023-018.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, any discussion? Side, if you call the roll, please.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Ms. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Jernigan?
Yes.
Mayor Witt?
Yes. Next is City Council Resolution 2023-020. Kenny, would you read that by title?
City Council Resolution number 2023-020, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Lake City, Florida, authorizing the execution of Task Assignment 3 with Passero Associates LLC for professional services, providing for the compliance assistance for current notice of violations, renewal of the expired multi-sector generic permit, MSGP, and providing site inspections for permit condition compliance for calendar year 2023 at the Lake City Gateway Airport, providing for a total cost not to exceed $9,860 and providing for an effective date.
Okay, you want to address this?
Certainly. My name is Brad Winty. I am with Passero Associates, and it is just what it says. It's basically the DEP administers the NPDES permit for the airport. The proposed action for Passero Associates is it's really threefold. It's to update the stormwater permit, update this SWIP, which is the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan for the airport. And then there are there are quarterly updates, inspections, and reporting that go along with that permit. So that's the planned activity.
Okay, any questions? All right, thank you.
Good to see you, Brad.
Good to see you, Jake. It's a pleasure.
Okay, what's the pleasure of council, City Council Resolution 2023-020?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I make the motion to approve resolution 2023-020.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, any discussion? Ms. Sykes, will you call the roll?
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Ms. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Jernigan?
Yes.
Mayor Witt?
Yes. Next is City Council Resolution 2023-021. Mr. Kenny, would you read that by title?
City Council Resolution number 2023-021, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Lake City, Florida, authorizing the execution of Task Assignment 2 with Passero Associates LLC for the professional engineering design services, bidding assistance, and should be on-site inspection for removal of tree obstruction debris at the approach of runway 28 at the Lake City Gateway Airport, providing for a total cost not to exceed $10,930 and providing for an effective date.
So this action came out of an FDOT safety inspection at the airport. It's on the east end of the runway off the approach on runway 28. They identified obstructions in the navigable airspace and some of the trees on the east side of Timberwolf. Airport staff had removed those trees. Now they're now felled, and what this is for Passero to do a design and bid package and oversee construction to get those trees out of there, to grade that property and essentially provide a maintainable surface. So we're just trying to basically clean that area up. It's about 2.5 acres. And I will add, that's part of a PTGA FDOT grant, so this is all 100% paid for by DOT.
Thank you.
I got a question there. So you're not adding on to the runway, you're just removing some of the trees, this is right?
That is correct, sir. Essentially, the trees are already felled.
Okay.
You know, as the planes come in, we want to eliminate any. So the trees are down, we're just trying to get those felled trees out of there, clean up the area and grade it appropriately to make it nice.
Look good, sound good to me, perfect.
Okay, what's the pleasure as to City Council Resolution 2023-021?
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to approve resolution 2023-021.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, any discussion? Ms. Sykes, you call the roll, please.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Ms. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Jernigan?
Yes.
Mayor Whit?
Yes. Thank you. Next, City Council Resolution 2023-023. Can we use that by title?
City Council Resolution number 2023-023, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Lake City, Florida, authorizing task assignment number 8 to the continuing contract with Mitar and Associates, Inc., a Florida corporation providing for engineering services associated with the preparation of a DEP biosolids site permit renewal application, providing for a cost not to exceed $6,400 and providing for an effective date.
What's the pleasure of City Council Resolution 2023-023?
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to approve resolution 2023-023.
Second.
There's a motion and a second, any further discussion? Ms. Sykes, you call the roll.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Jernigan?
Yes.
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Ms. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Whit?
Yes. Next is City Council Resolution 2023-025. Mr. Kennedy, we can read that one.
City Council Resolution number 2023-025, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Lake City, Florida, authorizing task assignment number 9 to the continuing contract with Mitar and Associates, Inc., a Florida corporation, providing for engineering services associated with the preparation of a water use permit application to the Swanee River Water Management District, providing for a cost not to exceed $29,800 and providing for an effective date.
Is there a motion as City Council Resolution 2023-025?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion for approval of City Council Resolution 2023-025.
Second.
There's a motion and a second, any discussion? Ms. Sykes, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Ms. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Jernigan?
Yes.
Mayor Whit?
Yes. Next is City Council Resolution 2023-028. Mr. Kennedy, would you read that by title?
City Council Resolution number 2023-028, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Lake City, Florida, authorizing the execution and submission of the 2021-2022 Florida Job Growth Grant Fund Public Infrastructure Grant Proposal, providing for a request for a grant award up to $2,900,000 or $2,009,000 and eligible costs associated with the extension of the city's existing centralized wastewater, potable water, and natural gas systems to the east side of the State Road 47 I-75 interchange and providing an effective date.
Is there a motion as City Council Resolution 2023-028?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion for approval of City Council Resolution 2023-028.
Second.
With a motion and a second. Figured Mr. Sampson would make that motion. Ms. Sykes, you call the roll.
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Jernigan?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Ms. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Whit?
Yes. Good project. Next is item 13, discussion of possible action terminating the interlocal agreement with county and building inspector for the city, Mr. Dow.
Thank you, Mayor. If the council, some of the members on the council weren't here when this was originally done last year. Basically, we lost our building official, and we did an agreement with the county for them to do our building inspections. If we did, the council did vote to put a building inspector in the budget. It is in the budget this year. Basically, at this point, there has been a few hiccups in the process between the city and the county. Basically, with different fees, different inspection rules. The building codes and all that are pretty much the same. There's just a few tweaks and stuff with them. But with all the additional growth that the county's facing right now and the city's facing right now, We have the position in the budget, so I wanted to bring it back before the council to see what the council's desire is. If we continue to use the county and their permitting services, or if the council elects to bring it back in-house and do our own permitting free of the county. Now, I know we have talked about in the future as well. This has been ongoing for a couple of years. This is back when Mr. Helfenberger was here at the end, and then Mr. Williams and all. We had met and talked about not merging, but having the two county and city building departments in the same building. That would help streamline the process of going, because regardless of how this comes out of what the council decides to do, you're always going to have some businesses or residents that are going to be split between the city and the county. So this would help to streamline the process of having both entities in the same building. But we can address that at a later time. I just want to make known that has been talks that me and Mr. Kraus have had for probably about a year and a half or so now. But the question tonight is just if we want to advertise for a building official, see what we get, and move forward with that, or if we want to continue to use the county's services. I think the county has been very gracious in helping us with our building inspections and things. But like I said, it's not perfect. We've had a few hiccups. We've worked a lot of them out. We still have some things that would, if we decide to go forward, would need to be changed. A few of them are the pricing. We have different fees for the city and different fees for the county. Our inspection, what the county inspects and what we inspect everything. The county inspects, if I'm not mistaken, anything over 4,000. So there's a few different things, and we just want to try to make what's best for the citizen or the developer coming in wanting to get a permit. The back and two, because a lot of times when he goes in, someone goes in, a developer in the county at this point, it might be something that's in the city, but yet they're gonna have to go to the county to get the permit. And then if there's something different than the way they do it, a lot of times they would contact us to see how they needed to go about negotiating to get the permit renewed or did. And I'm just trying to find a way to make it more manageable for staff, and also at the same time to make it more convenient for the citizens. So if this is something that the council wants to pursue, we can advertise for it, or we can vote for contracting it out. David has, in our conversations, been gracious enough to know that we were on this path because it was in the budget that we put a building official in. That's why we give a 6-month term. And David stated he'd be gracious enough, or the county be gracious enough to continue to help us permitting until we get back to where we need to be. So basically, I'm just asking the council, what's your direction?
Mr. Mayor, yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna mention, so a couple things. I do think an alignment of what the county does and what we do would make sense. I know the state's actually upped the limit from 4,000 to 6,000 it's allowed. I know the county shows at 4,000. I would like to see the city match that. I mean, I don't know why there's a need to make people jump through hoops and spend way more money they need to do to get permits to change windows. So in my opinion, I would like to see that match what the county does. Let's save people some money. I know they still have to inspect things with gas, but another thing is it's not gonna cut down the trips to customer service, because I believe about 54%, is it 54% of our utility that's in the county, roughly?
Probably 50.
About 50. So the people in the county hooked to our system still gonna have to go back and forth with customer service like they are now. I think Mr. Dials mentioned of co-location with the county makes a lot of sense, because if we could have one point where everybody goes to, and that's what it is, whether we decide that we need a building official or not, I mean, it just makes sense. I think the county's acquiring a building that's gonna be very convenient. I think if we could do those things, and if we could bring it more in alignment, I think that would get rid of some of the hiccups. As far as the other part goes, from talking to Troy way back, there's several things that the county does really well when you deal with the permitting process, and I've heard a lot of positive things about it. If you apply for a permit, you can track the process online. very convenient. I know in the past, there's been some issue with the technology. Technology is another expense that would have to be accounted for. I know that certain people wouldn't get, or do not get special treatment now. They got special treatment in the past. We don't have any permits, I believe, on napkins anymore, so I think that's done away with. And I think that's a good thing. I think everybody should be treated the same when they go for a building permit. No one should get a special treatment. Everybody should be treated the same. And that's why I think if we can align this $4,000 limit, or even if the county, maybe we could have a meeting with them to discuss an alignment of that, whether or not we stay with them or not. I think it would make sense to have a consensus of how that works. But as for that, I would like to see us continue on the path, working closer together to streamline this. I do think that there's an excellent job on the meetings they do every Thursday with the communication on the city side. I think that's outstanding. And if we can continue that, that way everybody knows what growth is coming up. And that's my opinion on that.
Okay, well, Todd, I agree with you, but we have budgeted for a building inspector. I think that it should go out for hire. I think that the city should do their own inspection, building inspection, whatever. We have been relying on the county for quite a while now. So I think it's time for us to kind of step back and start doing some of these things for ourselves. That's just my take.
Yes, I'm in agreement with Hill with that. The county has really been gracious to help us out, you know, the months and years that they have done that. However, now it's time for us to stand up and say, hey, this is what we're gonna do. Let's go ahead and get our own permitting, zoning. Let's do it all ourselves. And I'm pretty sure if we run into a problem or hiccup, Mr. Kraus and his staff would definitely be there to help us out. So if we could just streamline it to one location, that would be awesome. We really appreciate the county for what they've done, what they're doing.
Mr. Mayor, so does this budget include the technology that we can do the online permitting similarly to how it's done currently? That'd be a question for Mr. Dial.
No, we just have in the budget for the building official.
So we would go back to doing it by paper instead of online and convenience?
No, sir. No, everything that we're building, especially through our GIS and everything else, that we work closely with the county with is to kind of, they do have an excellent system. And we basically mirroring a lot of the things that they do and continue to build on the system that we have through our portals and everything else. So that would be something that we would definitely continue to go with in the future.
Because a big concern I hear from the people who deal with both is the inability to communicate, which we had previously under the previous building inspector. I think part of it's going to depend on who's hired for that position. But I don't know why we would terminate this before we knew what we were doing. If the time frame is what it is, Dave Young spent over a year trying to hire an assistant building inspector that was a licensed contractor and never was successful. We did that program where he hired, I think the guy's name was Gonzalez, and he was here for a short while. And then as soon as he got his contractor license, I know he struggled to pass it. And then as soon as he got close enough, he was gone. So I think that's another issue. Maybe in this environment, as far as how the economy is, it might be easier to hire a contractor. But remember, this person has to have a building license in Florida.
Well, of course, they would be qualified. He or she would have to be qualified for this position.
So am I hearing that upon termination, that the county is still, their door is still open to assisting us with this until a person is hired? Is that what I'm hearing? Just a question.
The short answer is yes. The longer answer is we met at our board meeting last week to discuss it, and they would like to see where we can get to a place where the fees and rules and stuff are consistent between both agencies. We did purchase We're in the process of purchasing the Lake City Reporter building, specifically to make it a one-stop shop. And so anything we can do to help facilitate making development easier in both the city and the county, we would support.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question for Mr. Kraus. Would that be a rent-free proposition?
Oh, no. You would have to ask the city or the county commission.
All right, what's the pleasure?
Mayor Anthony Hubbard, Quail Heights, and I want to address the council, and I've been doing a lot of research on that. Not mistaken, I kind of came up last year about the same time about the building department inspector. My recommendations from some of the research I've been looking at, how the city and the county are like right on top of each other when it comes to permits. One of the bills I spoke with was the biggest issue is the delay. Columbia County, when you look at an inspector, I believe they have 4. And the county was covered from Live Oak, Lake City, and I won't say Fort White, but the county's kind of big for 4 inspectors to kind of do all the permitting and inspection. Well, if Lake City had their own, that would kind of help, again, the county out. But again, this is all about Lake City. Looking at establishing something, the good recommendation, when you establish something, you can build it like you want to, i.e. the fees, however you want to do the fees. Yes, another thing would be personnel experience. My suggestion would have been bring somebody in temporarily, start working with the city as a liaison to start building your department. Once you start building it, then you slowly start hiring your building official. So what you're doing is you're going to try to get a lot of how they're doing their stuff, implement it here, and slowly start building your building department. Because once you build your building department and get your building official in place, he can go and start hiring a plumber guy, he can hire an electrician to handle a lot more of your permits. So it's a hard thing to do because how much the county has taken and how much they're doing right now for you. That's the biggest issue. And the thing I've looked at and everybody I've spoken with have said the issue is the county has a lot of, I guess they're taking a lot of stuff from the city. And so when you look at some of the permitting and some of the fees, I always go back to the book, the IRC, which is International Register Code. It establishes a lot of that in that book. So you can develop out of that book what fees you want to establish. Now, they already got some in place, okay, that's good. But at the same time, you can make it how we want. As if a building official will come to you and say, hey, you can put in an ordinance or you can adopt an ordinance that says, hey, the fees for putting the water here is this amount. You can establish it as a council, but they're going to come off the recommendation of a building official. For as me as a licensed home inspector, and coming from Texas, with our requirements for what we had to get to become a licensed home inspector, 448 hours, where the state of Florida is 120. I walk right into here and get a license. Phase inspection, building inspection, permits is some of the things that they allow the inspectors in Texas to do. Now, I know Texas and Florida are different, but at the same time, permitting, looking at stuff being put in from contractors, we can do that. Building official, we can do that. But here's the thing, we can only go off the guidance of what the city is looking for. If you come and say, hey, can we do this? Can we change the fees for this? You as the council can, with the recommendation of the building official, then he's gonna take that really off what it would take to install, i.e. gas, appliances, water heaters, service panels. So the IRC, you can look at it and detect what you want out of it and determine what you want to implement in your city.
So, Mr. Mayor, one more time, just to reiterate, it would be a licensed contractor, I believe, in Florida. Oh, Mr. Krasky, Mr. Mayor.
Just for the sake of clarification, and Paul can correct me, Mr. Dow can correct me if I'm wrong. To answer your question on technology, we pretty much share the same technology. We've been working together to try and run everything through the system, and our programmer, Patrick Weaver, has helped to change the city permits so that they all flow evenly and work together, and I don't see that changing at all. So I think working on the technology, I agree with Mr. Dial, that's not gonna change. In terms of setting your fees and all that, you already do. We don't dictate what the city charges for anything or what your rules are. We have to implement whatever rules you have. So all we're doing is building inspections because that's all you wanted us to do. But any fees, charges, rules, or regulations are all set by you, and we comply with whatever your rules are.
Thank you. All right, what's the pleasure, Council?
I make a motion that we terminate the interlocal agreement with the county, as building inspector for the city.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, any further discussion? Ms. Harper, you call the roll.
Ms. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Sampson?
No.
Mr. Jernigan?
No.
Mayor Witt?
Yes. Okay, next is schedule a workshop to discuss city hall building, vacant lots, crime prevention, and SWAT safety. Spoke with Mr. Dowd today, and we talked about when would be a good time, and I think it would be better to go, we're in March now, so maybe around the 1st of April. I was thinking if we did the second Monday of April, where we all used to be in here on Mondays, is that good with everybody? They get the staff time to be prepared for it.
What are we doing?
The workshop.
Discuss all those things in one workshop?
Well, we can try.
What day was that?
It would be,
Paul?
Have to talk fast.
That's a lot of information.
yeah, I think we have,
That really
probably ought to
is.
narrow it down for the first one.
Yeah,
I think the, city hall building is absolutely,
Maybe a 6-hour workshop. I said that'll be a 6-hour workshop, Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, is the engineering back on this current building?
I believe it is, it's messed down.
Yes.
Let's see, April, okay,
And don't forget that we are
the
having to.
10th, it'd be the 10th is what I'm talking about.
Okay, so
Is that a
Mayor,
Monday night?
Yes. And I'm not stepping
I
on
may
it,
be at the Lake Shore Hospital Authority meeting, but
okay?
we'll figure it out.
We can do it Tuesday night, the 11th. Has anybody got any conflict with,
Probably, I think I have live on city council.
okay, which, what day do you have open?
I think it's the second, we're the first Monday,
Uh,
and both of those are the second Monday and second Tuesday consecutive nights. And
okay,
then we come back the third Monday of the month, so really, that Monday and Tuesday of that second week in a month is gonna be.
okay, how about Wednesday?
I'm not available that night.
Okay. Thursday, 13th? Anybody have a problem with Thursday the 13th? Okay.
April 13th.
All
What time?
right, and then,
What time?
6,
Does everybody concur for that? What topics would you like to discuss at that evening?
I'd like the, city hall building, at least, as one of them.
I have to,
That may take the whole time.
I have to advertise exactly what we're going to be speaking about, so.
Anybody have a choice for a second? Y'all wanna just go with that line?
I like the, city hall.
One at a time.
Okay, City Hall on the 13th at 6 o'clock. All righty. That moves us to the last item is, we have the meeting on April the 3rd, and a lot of people are gonna be out of town, so we talked about doing the meeting on Wednesday the 5th. Anybody got a problem doing that? Everybody good with that? We'll meet on Wednesday the 5th at 6 o'clock. And nothing, departmental administration, comments to council?
I have comments, council. Going back to Gwen Lake, Hall and D. Like I say, I would appreciate it if you all would kick this in gear. I should not say kick, but make something happen. Because I gave my word that I would get something done about that lake. And I've been saying it ever since I've been sitting in this seat. And my word is my bond. That's all I got, is my word. And I would appreciate it if you all would make something happen in the lake.
All right, so we'll do everything we can.
And second, I like to say to the council, I think we're beginning to come together. We can all agree to disagree. I've noticed that in this meeting anyway, and I think we're gonna be okay. Some people may not like it, but I think we're gonna be okay.
And it is good having 5.
Yeah.
It's made it a lot better.
And that's all I have.
Anybody else?
Chief. Chief.
Hi, Council. I just want to speak quickly about the flock safety system. One of the reasons is October 1st, we have the price locked until April 1st. There's going to be a significant price increase after April 1. I did present a report to council. So if we can get some direction on the gunshot detection system and automatic license plate reader, if we get those contracts signed before April 1st, these prices are still in effect. After April 1st is probably going to be, at least, I think they're talking about a 25 to 30% increase in costs. So I just want to bring that to the council's attention.
So what do the council need to do to make this happen?
If you give me the authorization, we already have the contract sole source. If you have any questions about the system, I can go over it quick. But if you authorize it, we can sign it. And one of the things that they're going to do is it'll take about 4 months to get the equipment installed. We then have a 90-day trial period where if the system doesn't work to our liking, they remove it with no cost. That will bring us into the next fiscal year, so I can budget for it in my next budget request instead of looking for an emergency fund transfer from the council.
Mr. Kenny, can we do an emergency item?
We can, what's the next council meeting?
Maybe, we got one more this month.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would put it on the top of the agenda
Yeah.
for that meeting, and that way if we need resolutions, we'll have them prepared.
Does anybody have any questions about the system quickly? And one thing I will with the license plate reader, I'm working with the sheriff. He's looking to go with the same license plate reader. It's actually 2 parts. And we will complement each other where they're placed. So that way we'll get the most bang for our buck out of the license plate reader system. And the gunshot detection system, it's 2 square miles. It's in the areas where we're having the most issues. That is also expandable. So if something moves or if our patterns change, we can either expand or move, there'll be a cost, but move the system. So it is all solar powered, and I've already spoke with the sheriff. If the gunshot detection system goes off, both the police department and the sheriff's office will be notified at the same time, including the patrol cars, and that way we can get officers there quickly. The first thing is render aid to any victims. Second one is to try and identify the suspect and also, or apprehend, and also to identify any witnesses.
Okay, anybody got any questions?
I don't have a question, but it may be a question. I hear you say 4 months, which is a very long time. But as for now, up until we're stationed with all of this, Chief, can we please get more police activity, police patrol in these high gun activity areas? I just think that would make a great of a difference if even if they choose an area, because we know where they are. We know where these areas are. And if they can just, if they can be stationary, and then when they get a call, go out and then come back to this area, switch off or whatever. But we really need high patrol.
We do have extra patrols up there. Some of our incidents that have occurred, we've had units within a block or 2 of where it's occurred. The issue is the officer knows it's that way, but not where that way. We just had one the other day where an officer got in behind the car. We did make an arrest on that. We had an incident today where an arrest was made. We are putting up extra patrols. I've shifted some duty assignments and put them up into the areas where these incidents are occurring. And I've been posting overtime on the nights where we historically have had more problems to keep extra patrols. And also the sheriff has been putting his patrols into the area to try and keep this down. But we are making a concerted effort to try and get a handle on this.
Well, I think that if the sheriff department and the police department start locking some folks up, sending a message that we're not gonna tolerate this, it may not stop it, but it'll give them something to think about.
We are charging everything that is appropriate. We're working with state's attorney to get the whatever, I don't want to say the most severe charges, but the most appropriate charges in there. Again, today, it's the second time in the weekend we've charged with attempted murder. We're trying to send a message to the individuals that, again, we're sending, anytime we capture a firearm, our casings, along with the sheriff's office, we're sending it in for analysis. It's going into the nationwide system. We've actually had some firearms or casings that we've recovered, which are linking back to some incidents from a few months ago, which is why you might see some arrests coming in. People are asking why it takes so long. That's one of the, we'll get a gun. The gun will then go back to shell casings we found a few months ago. So we are working with the sheriff, Florida Department of Law Enforcement, and federal partners to get a handle on this. Thank you. Yeah.
Chief, may I ask you one quick question? I'm sorry.
Sure.
On that timeline on the flock safety system, I know we'll have it on the next agenda, but the timeline for the free trial goes from when to when?
Once the system is installed, then we have 90 days. So the way and I even told the sales rep, I cannot get billed before October 1st because I'm not going to have the money for it. And he said, don't worry about it. Make sure that the bill comes in after our new fiscal year begins so we can budget for it.
But we would have to sign the contract prior to October 1.
We have to sign the contract this month.
Budgeting the money
Correct.
for a budget year that we haven't started yet, right? Okay.
So I'd make a recommendation on that, Mr. Mayor. So what we could do is assign some of the ARPA funds or COVID relief funds temporarily until the budget. That way we can, because that, I understand the question is having an unfunded mandate is probably not legal. So I would be for doing that.
That was what I was asking. I just didn't want us to sign it and then it be a problem and then you don't have what you need.
So that'll be on the agenda.
Public safety is definitely approved for that.
Yes, I have it on the next agenda. I will get with Mr.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anything else?
Mr. Mayor, I have one more comment. So if you have not looked and you live below US 90, anywhere south of US 90, you better look at that new flood map because it is growing hugely. There's gonna be people in the flood zone that, to me, will never flood. They didn't flood in Debbie, but they're in it now. And then we see in other cases where the flood zone's getting smaller, and I wonder about that too. So if you are in that red area on that map, you can put your comments directly on it. And I think you need to pay attention. They gave us an extra 30 days, so it's through the end of April, I believe now. But I don't care where you live, south of 90, look at that map.
Where is it at?
Swanee River Water Management's website, it's the Santa Fe watershed.
All right, anything else? All right, thank y'all for coming.